I hope it's better now. I don't think I'm live yet, but everything here should be live.
Uh, you're live.
Okay, I'm live.
It looks fine now.
Can you wave your hand again or something? Okay. Yeah, perfect. A plus content right there.
A plus.
Names are still wrong, but you know.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah, the problem is I'm you and he's you. We can't just have
Oh
everyone
no,
be
all he is all the time.
yeah.
true. Forgot about that.
Um, so yeah, you were kind of like parsing this board state, but it seems like even if like everything lines up, however, Tom still just has the avenue to win from here.
I think so. I think getting a lot of our stuff Bajuka bogged probably got us killed, is my suspicion.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like obviously bog like affecting the graveyard matters, and you usually think of it tagging, I don't know, one loam or just like a few things, but that's massive. Just hitting all the stages, the field of the dead, just all the win cons, and like the chasm proper, like the
Yep.
glacial chasms there too.
Yeah. I wonder if we could have avoided this somehow. I'm not. It's
We don't
really
know the
tough.
history.
Exactly. I would love to break down this game from like turn one, but here it's just too hard to figure out what was supposed to happen. You know.
Yeah, but also makes sense why this particular match was taking so long. Just quite a grind of a game three, and I'm sure the first two games were also quite intense.
Oh, Tom Hep 121. That's what I see on the MTG Melee site. That would be my prediction from this board state.
Yeah. Well, expert commentary from Jarvis. We expect no less.
Yeah. Yeah, that Bajuka Bog, I think, probably won Tom the game. So,
Awesome.
what match are we going to end up watching in the top four?
Well, so the two matchups we have are Blue Black Shadow against Tom Hep on the Bug Depths deck, and then we also have Blue Red Delver against Ant. So it looks like we're going to be featuring Blue Red Delver against Ant. So two pilots that we've seen put on kind of a masterclass throughout this tournament. I'm
Yep.
really excited to see kind of how this back and forward action can go. So I hope we get. Really, I just want three good games, but I'll just take a good match in general. And you're gonna have to, give us some time to kind of set things up. You
Yep.
saw the stream got a little bit laggy and stuff, or maybe we're just going to it. Okay, we're going down the deck list. So yeah, we saw this deck earlier, but would you be able to explain to me in the context of this matchup?
All right. So we did see Rug Delver versus Ant earlier. And obviously, the changing Stifle to some number of bolts and like some other cards makes it better for Ant. However, on the flip side, I think the sideboard is where things get a lot scarier. The card specifically that I'm thinking of that's really scary is Pyrostatic Pillar. And for those of you who don't know, this is the card that sort of predated Eidolon of the Great Revel. It is Eidolon without the 2/2 body, essentially.
Yeah, it's just the Great Revel part.
Yes. Love it. That plus the Null Rod plus the Force of Negation and maybe Surgicals and Blasts, depending on how deep you want to go. I think all those cards are relatively effective. But specifically, I'm looking at the Pillars and the Narsets as cards that are extremely effective that I would expect to see sided in.
Can't forget about Null Rod.
Yeah, Null Rod. It does nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
Um,
And sometimes we see surgical, sometimes we see pyroblast, a little bit like mix and match there. Maybe to respect empty the warrant, you might see some pyroclasm, but it doesn't
Yep.
change the fact that there's some real haymakers in the sideboard that aren't necessarily typical of Delver decks. And
Agree.
I feel like, you can just say, oh, this is another person playing another Delver deck, but there's a reason why they're in the top four, and they still metagamed their Delver deck very heavily for this, anticipating more Storm because of no Veil of Summer.
Yeah, and not to discredit the other side, the Storm Pilot is quite good as well, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And once he sees all these lock pieces, he knows Abrupt Decay is going to be really important. It's already sort of important in the matchup just to try to take the pressure off, but now I think it becomes extra important to be able to like take out a Pyrostatic Pillar before trying to kill his opponent, or taking out a Null Rod or something similar.
Yeah, there's going to be tons of interplay from there. So like, okay, I have to bring on my abrupt decays, and it's going to be a part of my plan because you have 6 things that I would like to beat with abrupt decay before going off. Oh wow, now I need to get my green source. So now I'm more susceptible to wasteland. So I think the Delver deck brought the tools that can make the matchup a lot easier. Now, like you said, it's really on the Ant player to understand how to tiptoe around both Wasteland and these pieces that are very hard, along with just the normal Delver plan of pressure backed by counter spells.
So one really interesting note is it's Pyroclasm in the sideboard of this deck. That's not really an ideal answer to empty the Warrens because it kills your flip Delvers as well.
Yeah, not like Rough Tumble of old.
Yeah, I was specifically going to say if you were worried about that sort of effect, Rough Tumble might have been better. You know?
Yeah, maybe you're just worried about Ignite Memories or something.
I would not worry about that from anyone.
Would we be able to bring up the Ant deck? Oh, awesome! You're a mind reader. All right, so this is a deck that you kind of pointed out to me in the very beginning of the tournament. Want to walk through it again?
So this is a classic Legacy Storm deck. Usually it's called Ad Nauseam Tendrils. However, we've cut the Ad Nauseam from the main deck for Peer into the Abyss. And I kind of think Peer into the Abyss is a very good card in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
In this matchup, I think it's better than Ad Nauseam a lot of the time because you're allowed to cast it from any life total except 1, essentially. You're not allowed to cast it at 1 because you just get killed, but you're allowed to cast it from 2 that puts you to 1, and then you draw half of your deck. And by God, I hope your opponent's dead with you having half of your deck in your hand.
Yeah, like Ad Nauseam, you normally gets boarded out by a lot of the Ant players from the Delver matchups, but B, like you okay, I was able to resolve my Ad Nauseam, which means you don't have any other counter spells. But what do you reasonably have that isn't a counter spell and isn't already in play? Probably Bolt Effects. So now I turn on your Bolt Effects by playing Ad Nauseam. You don't necessarily do that by playing Peer.
Well, it depends on what turn you cast a Peer on, I think. I think if you Peer into your opponent's like double red and they have 2 bullets, you're still not in great shape depending on what turn it is, because like maybe they hit you for like 3 or 6 or 8. And, going from 12 to 6 is probably pretty lethal. And with that, we're down to the match.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Got all that water out of my hair and stuff. So now I'm ready for this. So first, it matters who's on the play, and it looks like it's the Delver player. But one thing that we've seen time and time again of the classic Delver versus combo matchup is you're just pricing to keeping almost all your lands and spell hands.
Agreed.
Regardless of how much pressure they have. It's part of the power of blue sculpting sort of thing. But the problem is that means you have less hands to have turn 1 Delver than if you were to mulligan aggressively for Delver. And I'm not saying it's wrong. Like, you are supposed to keep these hands as a Delver player. But the problem is it just gives the Ant player so much time when it is in the subset.
Yeah. Looking at Anthony's hand, on the other hand, 2 discard spells, a Wishclaw Talisman, a Cabal Writ, and a Ponder. Hand looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, so you have some sculpting elements, and being able to play Wishclaw Talisman is kind of like playing a cheaper Infernal Tutor. There's no braids that are going to get in the main. It is true that I could get Brazen Borrower, but then that's just trading 2 mana for 2 mana, which isn't terrible. And if the game slows down enough, you can have pseudo 8 or 9 cards in your hand when you go off by having the Wishclaw Talisman in play and then activating it later. It also combos pretty well with LED because you can empty your hand and then tutor, or you can choose how that's being situated.
So it looks like he drew Misty Rainforest for the turn, and it looks like a Ponder keep to me, although it's a little bit hard to tell,
Yeah, but drawing more lands in the beginning is definitely appreciated. A, it helps play around Wasteland. B, just having mana up allows you to invalidate days, and then that also in turn plays well with Wishclaw Talisman, where you can play a thing or two that you kind of care about that plays around days. Then for the last mana, maybe you activate Wishclaw Talisman and are able to go off. It's good. Lands are good.
Yeah, so I also think Anthony realizes his opponent probably has 1 force in the hand, because what hands do you keep as Delver that cantrip on 1 and 2 but have no interaction and no threat? So
maybe a hand that also plays cantrip on 3 and 4.
Fair. All right.
But he's gonna see, and having access to duress and Thoughtseize makes this a pretty low cost play, and being able to just be like, all right, I have a third land, I can play around this days, I can just pair off with another Force of Will. I've yet another discard spell for yet another Force of Will. Like it's looking pretty good for Anthony. But
Ooh, Wasteland off the top.
yeah, I think you just got to deploy the True Name. It's
I
your
agree.
3
agree.
mana flipped Delver. It just comes flipped already.
And it looks like Tartar Scarfman agrees as well.
Yeah. So Fraser's in a interesting spot. So I guess you could view the opponent's life total as virtual 18. So you're still kind of far away from this chain lightning doing something, but it could be possible that you're able to chain things together that allows it to matter.
A niche interaction that I'm not sure happens. Can you chain back a chain to a true name? I think you can.
I'm pretty sure you can, because it's the other player creating a copy. So it's like it's the copy that they own, and then you're still like choosing targets, kind of like with Grape Shot, but old templating. It's all good. From
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
it's okay.
I just wanted I wanted to see a very fringe play to happen, which was getting chained and cracking LE to chain back the chain to a true name.
Have you ever seen the like True Name Nemesis me Pyroclasm play?
Oh, yeah, I have actually. I've done that myself as well.
Yeah. So part of what Anthony was thinking there, and you might think, oh, Anthony's an expert with Ant, this should be an easy play, but it's how do I sequence these cantrips? How do I maximize my brainstorm versus preordain things? And that, I think you can only premeditate so much of how to cantrip and sequence things, that those are the correct times to be pausing. Like I criticize people on how quickly or slowly they play Magic all the time, and I think that's a perfect spot to be in the tank. It's like, okay, like these are very similar, but how do I optimize my percentages? So the
And
second bolt isn't terrible, given that you have the first bolt effect.
interesting. I feel like this might be a game about inches from the Delver deck.
Yeah, so you're not able to shuffle off of this brainstorm, and you're pretty incentivized to wasteland this turn. The question is, what are you doing after that? Do you need to keep this brainstorm? That way you can try to hope into brainstorming into a Force of Will should they go for it. You're definitely firing off the wasteland. We know that.
Yep. Other thing is, do you play your Wasteland out? And I think I would, but it's close.
I agree it's close, and I also agree that I would. So all three of us like it, so it can't be that bad.
Oh, another Misty Rainforest.
Yeah, that's an interesting decision for me, whether or not to play Brainstorm or just to play Wishclaw Talisman.
I think that Brainstorm is really good.
Yeah, so what does that allow you to do? You can play Thoughtseize, and then you'll have these rituals with Threshold, assuming everything's fine.
Yeah, so, well, is there a kill this turn is the real question.
So 2 plus 3 plus 3 is 8, plus the Infernal, minus 2 from the Infernal Tutor is 6, and then that's enough to, but you don't have any red, oh yeah, you have red mana through the pedal. I think you have to lead on Cabal Ritual then.
So keep in mind, Anthony knows about the days
Yep.
and anything else. Like, I mean, I guess he technically doesn't know about the days, but he can be fairly
Yeah,
sure that days is in his opponent's hand, right?
it was just Days and Chain Lightning. So
Right.
like the fact that Chain Lightning was played instead of Lightning Bolt, besides like being a sorcery, also was just known information. So a good choice there.
Yeah, I think oh, he might play it one turn slow as well, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of a, so if you play Pedal and try to play Cabal Ritual, it could be possible that they just Daze, and then you're kind of sad to lose your ritual there.
No
So
help from the brainstorm, unfortunately.
yeah, you're in kind of a tough spot at this point. You do know your wasteland gets to tag this Bayou should you not die this turn. And you do have 2 bolt effects, but that's still not enough. You could try to win against a subset of times that they need to go for a pier. But I think I would also land on something close to this because the preordained trying to find a force effect is kind of important. The problem is you're probably just losing your days.
Right, because that shuts off all of the force effects except nope, it shuts all of them off because you cannot simultaneously draw a land and a force of negation, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, you can preordain into brainstorm.
Right. Okay. Okay. So that works. Looks like Anthony has something in mind.
Well, so all I know is that like the cabals are +3, and then there's 2 in play minus the 2 from the tutor, so you're able to just have 6 black mana with whatever card in your deck in your
Wait,
hand.
is that a tutor chain for lethal?
Oh yes, I
Yeah. That's an obvious tutor chain. Like going for
yeah.
peer does nothing, and there's no
Yeah.
ad nauseum in the deck, so you just tutor tendrils.
Yep. So it's
And
exactly lethal.
and this is like what you said. Anthony has played so much that he knew that that's a thing that you could do. It took us a while to get it, so he spent time thinking about other things besides that.
Yeah, which is great, and just
Yeah.
putting on a masterclass here. So I
Yeah.
do also like how Frazier tried to optimize their percentages, given that they had to keep that sort of hand in the Delver matchup. Like
Yep.
if you look at the board, they were virtually a turn or 2 away from winning, so applying the best clock they could.
Yeah, if Anthony had to spend another turn, crack another fetch, and maybe something else happens and Anthony dies to like true name plus double bolt, you know?
Mhm. One thing I do like a lot is Frazier's sideboard for this matchup, which you've discussed a lot previously, but I
Yeah.
think like in our pregame, we kind of said that it's on Anthony to kind of dance around all these different elements and really understand how to approach the situation. This is where the real test was. Like, great, you're up a game, like you're almost through to the finals, but
Yeah.
this is where it gets hard. Like, Pyrostatic
I
Pillar is
agree.
not a card they want to play against.
Huh. What do you think of citing Sulfuric Vortex?
Mm, I'm not sure I get it. I think it's 3 mana 2/2 haste or two
Yes.
infinite
No,
unblockable.
it's not 2/2 haste because it's like 2/2 deal 2 to you, deal 2 to me, 2/2.
Yeah,
It's like a sweeper agent, you know?
yeah. That's a good comparison.
Um,
It's not intuitive to me to bring it in, but hmm. And there's no real life game that you're playing around. I think it's
well,
just to.
except tendrils.
Oh, that's true. I guess it's just to complement the overall plan of having pillars. Then I don't know. You're ending up with hands like this, but once
um,
again, you're just priced into keeping them.
so Anthony looks at opponent's deck list, sees Pyroclasm, sides in empty anyways, because empty is just so good in the matchup for the times you don't get Pyroclasm. And also, if you get Pyroclasm, it's actually likely that all of their stuff is going to die too. So
Yeah,
it's not even that bad.
really just Dreadhorde Arcanist is the one that's gonna be able to stay alive, and Parasitic Pillar, which is not the Eidolon here, which is great. But
Wow, this is a
one thing
really good
empty,
brainstorm.
yeah, definitely. One thing having access to Empty the Warrens also allows you to do is you can have like a fate combo turn, like where they're saving their Force of Will effect for your Infernal Tutor or your Peer, and instead you're just like, hey, empty 8 goblins, like this might buy me enough time, or this might kill you. So it's pretty interesting how the Force effects play against Empty the Warrens.
So interesting thing right there. The brainstorm put back Volcanic and a fetch underneath it. Do you think we're supposed to put back Volk and then a spell underneath that to flip our Delver?
Yeah,
I think I would put the surgical underneath, right?
yeah, I agree with both of those.
Obviously, like they've played already 6 rounds of Magic. It's easy for us to say all these things to do easily. Us being in the booth, we're not actually playing. It's always easier to watch than to play, right?
Yeah, and there's also some amount of pressure, but depending on the player, there's also some amount of relief being in this position.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
both of the competitors, loser still gets $50 for an event that was virtually free and just
Yep.
supporting Honorog, which we do and you guys should do too. But Like
Hmm.
it's perfectly fine, and the life total is actually such that it's like it could be fine. Like it's still a multiple of 3 potentially. So, well, with the fetch land it's not, but it might not matter in a subset of games. And yeah, fatigue is a real thing in these matches.
Yeah. Looking at these hands, I'm really not thrilled about this vortex being our hand. I don't think it's going to be easy for us to have a window to actually cast that vortex, right?
Hmm. I kind of feel like it was that turn.
Well, if we were going to cast it, we should cast it that turn. But I also understand leaving up dissipate plus days plus force. You know.
Yeah, I can't fault that, but yeah, I think you're kind of alluding to like uh maybe like a cohesion of like your sideboard plan
Right.
with how you're going to choose to situate yourself in the matchup, but
Mhm.
maybe it's like how the reactive elements are coming together that prevents the Sophia Vortex from being able to be developed here.
Meanwhile, on the other side, we haven't talked a lot about the other side. It looks like Anthony's just played a bunch of cantrips and is building up for a big empty turn. That's what it
Yep.
looks like to me.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of decisions in how you're sculpting. Like you want to hit the first couple land drops, you want to make sure you're invalidating days and not getting shut off of certain colored mana. You want to make sure that you have access to abrupt decay because you're kind of allowing this game to go a little bit longer. So those haymakers and Null Rod, Pillar, and Narset can come up. So you want to go for it sooner than later, and this might be the go-ahead time.
I agree. Um, so another good reason to go for it this turn is I don't think your opponent's likely to force your first ritual. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously I could be wrong, but this thought seize also gives you a ton of information, right?
Yeah. I was kind of thinking that we might want to lead on Dark Ritual.
Oh yeah, sure.
The reason is because if this happens and then your next ritual, like you play Dark Ritual and that gets countered, then you can no longer play Empty
Right.
because you don't have red mana.
I think here it's a lot less clear from Anthony's perspective what our opponent's going to counter if they counter anything. Like in the previous match, we saw him play in such a way that he knew what was going to get countered and be able to set up a trap. Here, I think game one was so like sort of lopsided that he doesn't have a good read yet. You know.
Yeah, it's really tough. Like if you play the Dark Ritual first, it's probably not getting countered, and then you're kind of committed, like resource wise, into it.
Yep.
And with Empty, like every pair of goblins is kind of precious. But like given the texture of this game, that was just cantrips. Then I played a Delver that didn't flip, and like all these like small things that added together. You can
Yep.
deduce that and there was no Pillar, no Narset, like none of those types of cards. So it has to be combinations of like bolt effects, forces, and days. So then like against that, how do you want to play? And luckily, Empty the Warrens is a one of, so then you end up in more spots where you don't get like punished for this. But I feel like this is a turn that you are just obliged to go for Empty the Warrens.
I think what you might see Anthony do is play the ritual, then just play both of the LEDs, then play empty.
So I like this play a lot.
Yeah.
So Fraser's just playing Surgical as peak because you don't really know what to do, and you're actually very polarized on what's going to happen, and he's actually going to be rewarded. So if he chooses to play Force on this Dark Ritual, like this Empty turns over.
And well, so I think now once you've done this, you're priced into forcing it every time because you see the opponent's hand. If you let this resolve, then they're just going to go LED, LED, empty, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
they know your hand and you know their hand, so everything's face up, right?
Well, if you let this resolve, you can't counter anything else. Like they could play Cabal Ritual, you can counter this, and then play another Cabal Ritual.
Wait,
But
no.
but if you counter the Dark Ritual, then they don't have access to red mana. It could be possible that that was overlooked.
I think Tartan Scarfman might have missed it,
Yeah, well,
which is okay.
yeah. it's tough to see those sorts of things, and like LED makes any color of mana, so there's just like so many factors going on here, and we don't know what's going on in the player's head. So I'd like to give them benefit of the doubt. And
Yep. This is going to make
regardless,
16 goblins, but the problem is we know that blue red Delver player did not cite in Pyroclasm, right?
right?
Which
So
means
I think it has to be brainstorm into bolts is what you're trying to look towards.
well, what cards did we cut for all these Narsets, pillars, and vortex and surgicals and stuff? My intuition would have been the bolts, but I don't. I guess I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my suspicion. The bolts have to come out because there's just not a lot of room otherwise, right?
Yep. So
We can fawn the empty to reduce 2 goblins, but that doesn't solve the primary underlying problem, right?
yeah. Yeah, it looks like a small misstep might be the cost in the
Yeah,
top four, but like I said, we've seen great play out of Frazier all
yeah,
day. And it's fine to be in this sort of situation, and it's definitely a difficult line to see. But what's also great is that um, once this happens to you once, you kind of like start paying attention later on. Like, is there a way I can use my counter spells to take them off a certain color of mana? So it'll be interesting. So here it looks like Frazier's just going to attack back and kind of just try to represent something that can lead to a kill potentially if bolts were still left in his deck. And like I can never fault someone for
yeah.
extra camera time and stuff. I always love the camera.
So 14 goblins means you have to deal 8 twice because your opponent's at 16, which means you have to attack with at least 9 of them.
Yeah, so Anthony might do the math to try to play around a bolt flashback bolt, but that actually
Exactly.
doesn't work. Like you can't play around bolt flashback
No,
bolt because of the
because that would be 9 damage no matter what, right?
yeah, exactly.
So Anthony knows he's dead to bolt. I think he's looking to see if there's any weird like semi out for the opponent. I don't think there is, right?
Yeah, I think
But
you can hold back some this turn and then attack with more next turn.
I agree. The reality is you have to deal your opponent 8 damage this turn. I think that's the actual answer. So any attack that leads to dealing 8 to your opponent, leaving some amount back, feels correct to me, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of just marginal. Like the only way it matters is if your opponent boarded in Pyroclasm and then you need to go for tendrils.
Yeah. So that's probably what Anthony was actually thinking about. Narset, a little late to the party.
Yeah, wouldn't have mattered with how this particular like the fact that it was empty the warrants instead of say peer.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely late to the party.
I kind of wonder what would have happened if we had played Vortex on turn 3. That might have been enough damage, actually, right?
Yeah, would have been 6 more damage. Yeah.
Oh, then maybe that's not even enough. Interesting.
Well, no. It would have been 6 more damage, and the Delver hits this turn, I think.
So our
So
man, man behind the curtain was sort of curious. What happens if the Dark Ritual
Delver
does
gets
get?
bombed.
Yeah, I think what happens is Anthony is in much worse shape because you can't empty that turn essentially, right?
Yeah,
And B, the empty of the warrants is for at least 2 less goblins, which I think matters a reasonable amount.
yeah. So just like real quick, it would be like the 2 LEDs, 2 Cabal Writs, and empty. So that's just empty for 10, which is already less. Also, you get to develop your Severe Vortex if you want to, because you already know their
Yep.
hand. So then I'm pretty sure the race ends up being in your favor, such that you would like attack with the Insectile Aberration. You have Vortex dealing 2 extra damage over 2 more turns, and the empty for 10, even if they draw a cantrip, is not lethal.
But it looks like we have another match.
Yeah, so this is our other matchup, which is Tom Hep against Eric, who is on Shadow. So it's Bug Depths against Blue Black Shadow, as you can see from this duress. And we're watching it from Tom Hep's side. And luckily we get to see the hand here. I'm actually gonna take a note that way I don't forget. Or
I think Tom's hand is pretty good.
yeah, I do like having access to Reclaimer. Definitely a big addition to these decks.
I think I would take Ponder probably and just try to six them without a second land. Yeah, I think that would be my plan. Then I would probably play one of the Reclaimers out.
Yeah, this hand's like pretty good for Tom, except for the fact that there's 2 Brazen Borrowers. But the fact that you have Reclaimer just makes
Yeah.
all your turns so nice. Like you
Well,
get to slowly assemble your plan.
yep.
It's kind of what Edgar was alluding to earlier, that you can just start putting the opponent into spots where their mana's just wasted leaving up Brazen Borrower because you get to
And
present
you,
the opponent.
yeah, and you get to develop your own plan because you can like activate your Reclaimer, go get other lands like maybe Wasteland or access stages or whatever.
Oh, I forgot about Wasteland. Maybe you could just get Wasteland here.
Um,
Oh, it comes in play tap. So if they
yeah,
miss a land drop, I think you get Wasteland.
yeah, I agree with that too because I think the 3/4 body is sort of a threat. Well, the thing is, do you even want to attack your opponent? That's
No.
like the same question again, right?
Yeah, I think you just don't have to. This is pretty
I agree.
different than the time we saw it previously with Delver
Right.
against, like Blue-Red Delver against Shadow. Here, you're just dealing 20, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, like letting them sneak in threats by dealing them chip damage is probably not worth it on average.
Yeah. Let's see. So we're 4 mana away from casting this Not of This World, so it's going to be a little while.
That land was a pretty good draw. I think you should actually search up. Well, let's see what Tom does. But my instinct is to search up Thespian stage.
I'm not sure. Striking the fetch actually that good. I know it gets this to a 3/4 sooner, but that doesn't stop it from any removal spells. And I don't actually know if you want to thin your deck of lands. Like I was considering just using the Mox Diamond and the Bayou to sack the Misty Rainforest, but it's like pretty minor. So ultimately
Interesting.
getting
You
the
got
dark.
depths. So actually, Not of This World is a great answer to petty theft.
Yeah.
Because you know your opponent has no dazes or forcibles right now, except for one unknown draw, which was a land, right?
No, there's another unknown card. Oh wow. That's a
But we
great.
already knew that. Well, we already knew that could happen, right?
I didn't think about that happening, so speak for yourself,
Ooh,
Jarvis.
Urborg off the top is like an excellent counterplay to that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Do we get to attack? Probably not.
No, I think my plan would be to sack Bayou to get stage,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, and you don't want them to develop Shadow. Sorry, I just
Right.
love attacking a Magic. It's my favorite thing about the game.
For those of you in chat, this is game 3 of the other semifinals matchup. It is Bug Depths versus Blue Bug Shadow. Ooh, but that Thoughtseize is actually kind of huge, right?
Well, it depends on, like, it is huge in that it takes Not of This World, but it's also not necessarily huge in that now you're just priced into leaving up your mana the whole time, and then hopefully you draw land for this Brazen Borrower. Like it is good that you got the Not of This World, don't get me wrong, but like you if you don't make your land drop this turn, you're not like wildly happy.
Yeah. Fortunately, for better or worse for F711, he has another turn before the Merit Wage will come knocking.
Yep, definitely some reprieve there. So ultimately taking the Not of This World, which just has to happen.
Well, the other card has no text.
Yeah,
pretty much,
so
right?
the hand's known. But if the Delver flips, you can also leave the Delver on defense sometimes.
Yeah, and that's like pretty good.
You also have Brazen Borrow on defense, depending on how it plays out. So, like, if you draw an untapped land, you can flip. Well, depending on how things happen.
So that is not a good draw for a lot of reasons.
lets you play the Mox Diamond if you want to, but I don't even know if that's beneficial this particular turn.
No, I think my instinct would be to just say go and double Stone Rain them.
Are we allowed
So,
to?
well,
Oh.
what you can do is EOT rotate your depths into a wasteland.
Yep, that's what I want to do too. So it has to be right. We both came up with it. No, just kidding. Like Tom sees all these lines, so
Yeah, Tom has played a ton with Dark Depths and Stage and Reclaimer and Rotation. Yeah, just converting your second depths into something that does something is like a big deal.
Yeah.
And he's waiting to do it to see if his opponent draws Wasteland. Because if your opponent draws Wasteland, that actually like extremely affects the outcome of the game.
Yep. So the draw for the turn was something that didn't flip Delver. So that's a very narrow range, and we find out that's the sideboarded island.
Honestly, this situation is very good for Tom, I think. There's like not that much pressure on him.
So you do need to end up going for a line eventually that involves like Sajiri Step or something like that, because between a Flip Delver and Brazen Borrower, there is going to be a blocker for Merit Lage. So
I think what has to happen is if Tom draws another land next turn, he can play Mox Pitch. And wait, 1, 2, 3.
That's not enough to leave up Reclaimer.
It would be if we
depending on what
drew
land you
another
get
land.
here. Yeah. If you don't.
No, it doesn't, because Urborg lets you tap all of your lands for mana, right?
Oh yes, thank you. So if you draw another land, you have 3 lands in play now. You'll have Dark Depths and the other land in play. So then 3 of the lands go away for the Dark Depths, and then you have 2 for the Reclaimer. Yeah.
Yep. I think maybe Tom's thinking about whether he actually wants to get. I'm not sure the Wasteland does that much anymore. I guess. No. The Wasteland does do something. It prevents a hardcast Brazen Borrower. Well, no, it doesn't really.
Well, like the land's kind of like spoken for if you're willing to use the Reclaimer.
Right.
But the turn afterwards, I think it's appreciated.
Right. So are we seeing Petty Theft on Reclaimer?
Oh wow.
Interesting.
And he knows the hand.
So why don't we can just main phase activate, waste our opponent, which cuts.
Yeah.
And you know the worst part of all of this? We can just Mox Pitch Urborg to replay the Reclaimer, which plays around. Not that it's in our opponent's hand. If they play Diabolic Edict or something like that, it plays around Edict to do that as well.
Yeah, and it plays around the Delver flipping because you could get Sajiri Step, and you would know what the card is, so you would know their whole hand.
I think our opponent's just going to be in the Abyss now.
There were only 2 Brazen Borrowers on the list, right?
That's yes. Yeah. That's what it looks like to me. So this is actually just the hard lock.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, you can see Tom smelling the blood in the water there and just very quickly executing the main base plan.
Well, once Tom saw the second Petty Theft get used, he's like, "Oh, my opponent's just leaving themselves open."
Mm-hmm.
He knows when there's blood in the water, and there was blood in the water right there.
Baby, there's a shark in the water. Not the same song, but that's okay.
Look, but you mentioned sharks.
It's true. I've heard that song more times in the past few months than I thought I ever would. Baby Shark, to be clear. All right, so he's gonna be able to present this Death Shadow, but he's hoping that his Insectile Aberration will be allowed to block, but we know that just isn't happening with the Reclaimer in play and the Sajiri Step still on deck.
Tom's putting on a master class. and it looks like it's going to be a classic matchup. Bug Depths versus PNT in the finals. Let's call it PNT.
I like Pat, just pure
Pat.
abyss, like tendrils instead of ad nauseum.
Pure. Sure, sure.
Right. Gotta click on the good symbol. All right,
The best
good.
symbol in Magic.
Yeah,
right.
we passed that test. Yeah, it's the teardrop symbol because your opponent cries when you play too many blue cards.
So yeah, like I said before, I do think Depths generally is favored versus Shadow variants, and
Mhm.
we sort of saw it that game. Although it was a little bit trickier because our mana was not perfect, you know.
Mhm.
I Well, once you put 8 colorless lands into your deck, the mana situation's not always perfect. You know how it is.
Yeah. Oh, I know how it is. You try to like get so greedy with your mana bases and just make sure everything happens, but it's hard sometimes.
It is very difficult sometimes.
So,
Oh,
I know this is the last time you're gonna be in the booth today, so I'll let you run these last few minutes however you want.
all right. So we did see Dark Depths take down that match, and we saw my buddy Anthony take down the other match. Honestly, all of the games we've seen so far have been great. I think the last match, it's Bug Depths versus PNT. I think the blue component of that actually improves the matchup a little bit, with a Stifle and the Flusterstorm. But I think overall that it's probably still favored for the combo deck is my gut reaction. What do you think of that?
They're both combo decks.
What?
They're both combo decks,
Yeah,
right?
you know what I mean. The ritual based combo deck.
Yeah. So pretty much by merit of being able to be more explosive and also being able to conceal your combo, like
Yeah.
the depth deck won't always have access to Thoughtseize and Duress. Like they won't always know what's in the hand of the Storm player, so they kind of have to be on edge. But you can kind of realize when you're going to get 20/20'd. So the clock is extremely clear, and we've seen Storm be able to take advantage of those types of moments. But
And to
yeah,
to tie it all back in to our no veil, no LABE, no problem. I think both of these decks sort of profited a little bit from there being no veil. Although I would argue that the depth deck would rather have veil in this matchup than the Past in Flames deck rather would.
yeah, I agree with that. I do think I still like the depth side from the standpoint of your mulligans are kind of better because instead of trying to build up to a critical mass of spells, you're trying to do something that requires very few cards. And a lot of your pieces are redundant, which is pretty good against the Thoughtseize deck. Some of them can't even be targeted by Thoughtseize, while all the
Right.
interaction Tom has can be very surgical in what they're targeting in the hand. So, maybe it's commentator bias or something, but I do like Tom's chances in the matchup.
Yep. Anyways, I'm gonna peace out now, and Edgar's gonna be in the booth for this finals matchup, and it's going to be fireworks. So stick around, y'all.
Yeah, thanks for everything, Jarvis. All right,
Yep.
so taking us home tonight is me, Jonathan Skennick, Watchwolf92, and Edgar Magayesh, or however you pronounce that.
Nailed it.
Nice, thanks. So what are we going to be seeing in the finals today?
We are seeing a couple dedicated Thoughtseize decks in the form of Ad Nauseam Tendrils and Sultai Depths.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So some things, we still see these decks in Legacy, but still playing towards the no veil, no lab, no problem sort of thing. And just all in all, like, what are your general thoughts on things that we've seen today and the fact that there hasn't been veil and there hasn't been lab?
I mean, it's kind of been pretty interesting, but it is definitely worth noting that these two decks in the finals, if you want to really hammer it down to in reference to the tournament structure, is that there's one deck that is pretty weak to the card Veil of Summer, and there's one deck that's pretty weak to the card Swords of Plowshares, which is kind of an extension of Astrolabe in the current format. And it's kind of neat to see these two decks rise to the top when those cards are absent from the format, whether or not that has to do with that. And I mean, Depths is also a deck that has a lot of discard spells in it, so Veil of Summer relevant against them too. So it's good to see
Yeah.
them.
So speaking of those decks, how about we see what our finalists are playing? So starting off with a signature Tom Hep one stifle bug deaths. Would you be
Just a
able to
classic.
walk me? Yeah, would you be able to walk me through? Like, we know what this deck does, but what are going to be the important elements in this finals match?
Well, he's playing against Ant, and I would assume that because these brainstorms, I believe that they're kind of in place of where you would normally see like the tertiary threat. In Dark Confidant is I think the most typical card in that slot, and uh, I feel like Brainstorm is probably a downgrade there. I'm not 100% positive, but he does get access to a Stifle, which could be pretty relevant. And these Flusterstorms after board are kind of an avenue that traditional depth decks don't really have against combo decks, and could be pretty devastating when Thomas is just presenting discard spell into Merit Lage, and then if it might cause the Ant player to just have to go for it and then get blown out by a Flusterstorm.
Well, one thing I do like about the brainstorms is that you can, similar to brainstorms against discard spells in other decks, you can hide some important elements, maybe a key crop rotation. Another thing that brainstorm allows is that it allows you to kind of look at cards at a faster rate than depths would want to. Like, you're kind of trying to turbo in this matchup, and allows you to see many cards to try to go off the turn sooner. And sorry, we don't have enough time because we're just getting right down to the action, so we're
Right
not going to
into
be
the
able to look
action.
at it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
we might blink and miss it, so we gotta get into this. So we have Anthony on the play, and pretty big deal because since both decks are discard decks, if for instance Tom only had one discard in his opening hand, Anthony could just get rid of that and conceal the information, or not allow Tom to poke a hole into his hand. But Tom did have two copies of Inquisition of Kozilek, so just dealt with the crop rotation instead and slow Tom's development.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool optionality that comes with coming on the play, being on the play with discard mirrors. But after taking the crop rotation, it's not the same as you can't thoughts use the top card of your deck, your opponent's deck. But drawing the dark depths is kind of ideal there.
Yeah. It lets him set up combo on turn 3. Still has 2 discard spells. This 7 mana card is kind of going to be a stain in Anthony's hand because he wasn't able to get Hellbent for Inferno Tutor. But LED probably the ideal draw. I'm not sure if he has enough to. No, he doesn't have enough to do anything relevant. I don't believe.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So dark rituals +2, cabal rituals +1. So that's 4 total pre-LED. Then you can play Infernal Tutor, crack the LEDs. So you have 5 mana. You can play Pass in Flames there, have 1 floating. But when you Pass in Flames there and flashback the cabal ritual, the dark ritual and the cabal ritual, how many cards in your graveyard? You would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because the Pass in Flames would generate the extra card. So you can actually flashback Dark Ritual and Cabal Ritual. So that would, and it would still be thresholded. So then that would be 1, 2, 3, 6. Then you can flashback the Infernal Tutor and get Tendrils. But I don't think that's Storm Count 10.
Yeah. So Anthony has to say go here. One thing worth noting is that crop rotation actually a pretty powerful piece of interaction from the death side with its ability to get bog, which I don't believe is absent. No, it's not. Even in the Sultai variant, just because it's so powerful.
So,
And
sorry.
because without passive flames, the ant deck is it's pretty difficult for it to go off.
So I finished up with the numbers, and it would have been a tendrils for 18.
Okay, yeah. So I guess one spell short, unfortunately, and now this Inquisition is going to likely take the Inferno Tutor. Yeah, and
And now really
uh,
far away, kind of.
yeah, Anthony probably needs a brainstorm or something of the sort. Um, although, if he just manages to, because you could even just crack the LED for just an additional card in the graveyard. He's actually only one card away from Threshold, so if he hits like another fetch land, I think he can just cast the Pier, which would probably be good enough.
4, 5, 6. Yeah, so you need a card that goes to the graveyard. So like another fetch land would be good. A ritual's even better.
Because I assume you'll draw a land off the top half of your deck.
Thoughtseize not ideal.
Not quite
And
good enough.
might just be. Oh wait, that can
No,
still give you
because
threshold, but that's not enough.
but then you're
prop-
1 mana short because you have to use the one land because you only go to from 3 to 6. So actually, Anthony, getting a little punished there for Pier over Ad Nauseum, I would
It's because
assume.
we named the deck Ant. It knows.
Yeah. Because I think Ad Nauseum probably would have done it there.
I mean, we don't know it's ad nauseum, but the life total was high enough.
The likelihood is pretty high. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess suppose we don't know for sure.
We
But
see the ant coming in as a result, or the ad nauseum.
quick win for Depths. Now, do you think that was a more important game for Depths to win or for Storm to win? I mean,
So like
obviously
who
important from
improves?
both sides, but who do you think improves more after board?
I think Tom. I think he's really getting paid off for this decision to play blue. These flusterstorms are going to be very difficult to interact with.
Yeah, that was my intuition as well. So probably a pretty devastating loss from the Ant side.
Well, it is
Um,
true that you have more pause, though, right? There's these 2 chain of vapors and 2 echoing truths, and they're not for lock elements like they are sometimes. Like they're not for bouncing Thalia. They're here to just stop the combo, which is still pretty threatening because you're not really tapping that much mana on your main phase, so it's pretty easy for Anthony to rep these.
yeah, that's a good point actually, and um, it's definitely very nice that like answering the Mirror Lage is can set Tom back multiple turns, so it's not really that big of a deal if you're down on resources. But the Flusterstorm also kind of nice at answering that as well. The answers out of the Ant decks, which is doing double duty. So probably going to be pretty important to see how many copies of Flusterstorm Tom draws. I assume that's going to be a pretty integral part to the post-war games.
I'm kind of surprised with the keep that Tom has. I understand Reclaimer is really good, and you have a lot of lands in the deck, and Thoughtseize is also good interaction, but I wonder what's the actual like percentages. But sorry, I guess they're 100%, so that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean the gemstone mine is a little bit sketchy, but I suppose worst case scenario you can just use a gemstone mine counter to crop rot it into like a bayou.
Mhm.
If you had to, like obviously not the best use of the crop rotation, but perhaps he felt like his hand was strong enough that that was worth it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
if you draw a dark depths, then you just have crop rotation for Urborg to play one of these hex mages.
that's true. And I guess like another like third thing you can do is you can turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Reclaimer, turn 3. Oh, that doesn't work because
No,
the mark would
that
already die.
one does not work, unfortunately.
I should leave it to the gemstone mine expert. So after being Thoughtseize, just kind of trying to sculpt the hand and really get something together, the onus is still on the ant deck. Unless if you have the Chain of Vapor and you think it's good to go, or Echoing Truth, the onus is kind of on you to be the faster deck.
Yeah, and Tom seeing that Anthony's hand was fairly redundant, so just took the echoing truth, so giving Tom the opportunity to just do his own thing if he can, and um force Anthony to find either more answers or a way to actually go off. Just some
Yeah,
more cantrips. Tom's not really doing anything too punishing though, so I think Anthony still feels fairly comfortable here. He's not that far off from going off, right? Like he just basically needs not even an LED. He just needs spells that he can cast and get out of his hand, because he can just start the next turn by casting Tutor to turn his Dark Ritual into another Dark Ritual.
Yeah, I kind of forgot what the thoughts you saw. I don't think it saw two ponders, because if it saw two ponders, I kind of consider surgicling one of the ponders and just getting that discard out of there.
No, I don't believe it did. I actually, I'm not 100% positive either, but I think the hand was just 2 Tutors, a Brainstorm, and Echoing Truth, and 3 lands, or 2 lands, or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not 100% positive though, but
No,
I
that's
believe
fine.
that's what it was. And
Good
then
enough for
Brainstorm hit a couple cantrips.
me. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the brainstorm finding a Misty is good, but you're still a little bit of ways from the combo. Well, no, you have crop rotation, so you have crop rotation Hex Mage. So just trying to figure out how to position yourself, because you can play Urborg and Hex Mage here, and then you don't need the other Hex Mages at that point. But
Yeah,
if you
I think you probably want to shuffle away instead. This
and you can
also
leave up
leaves
Stifle.
open Stifle and Crop Rotation as well if Bog. So he actually has 2 pieces of interaction here,
Hmm.
and I wonder if Anthony's going to yeah, I was wondering if he was going to tutor up another Thoughtseize actually, but it looks like he was trying to, because he could just go this turn if this sees only 1 piece of interaction. But actually, I think Stifle he can beat.
I, I,
Um,
I don't think he can beat Surgical though, because you would
no,
have to play Infernal Tutor on a Dark Ritual. Then, as you try to go off, the tutor in hand gets Surgical.
right. So, had it been just Stifle and Crop Rod, I think he could take the Crop Rod and then pass in Flames, and then Thoughtseize the Stifle before killing Tom. But the Surgical is definitely going to prevent that, so he has to play a little bit slower here, I believe.
Yeah, I wonder which element of this hand he's looking to take. Um, because you also can't take the Hex Mage, because crop rotation has like the option to just get Dark Depths.
No, yeah, I think you need to take one of the interaction pieces, because if you just take Hexmage, um,
You lose to the Reclaimer and the Crop Rot.
yeah, and Tom just has so much time too, right? Because he still has 3 pieces of interaction at that point, and Anthony just has nothing going on. But it looks like Anthony is not afraid of. Oh, he took the surgical, right? So
Yep.
this makes sense. So he's just setting up for possibly a big ad nauseum or peer next turn, I would guess. This
Hmm.
makes sense. It's a way to beat the bog
Yeah.
is to cast one of those 2 spells.
So Tom fetching on his upkeep is because he knew he had 2 Hex Mages there, not really the draw step you want. Urbor gets to save the Gemstone Mine, which is pretty
Oh,
awesome.
interesting. I actually didn't even think about that. That's
Most I'm
good.
pretty sure it's phrased that way. That's a part of the mana
It is,
ability.
yeah. You have to use the mana ability that removes the counter in order to
Yeah, it's not like City of Brass, or City of Brass just deals you the damage even if you use Urborg.
Okay, so I think Anthony's gonna be able to do something here.
Yeah, I think it's just go time. It's not getting any better.
Now, I'm no I'm sure that this is something that the ant community the ant community loves their math. If you ever talk to
You mean fake math?
some, yes, exactly. And I'm sure that they have worked out like which spell is a higher percentage victory
Well,
in spots like this.
I I know how this works. If you get Pier, you're like 93% to win. But if you get Ad Nauseum, you're like 86% to win. So you have to get Pier. See, I'm also a Storm expert.
I bet the numbers are like closer to like 96 and 97, and it's like they've just argued about it for hours, but it's it's pretty funny nonetheless. I mean, I'm sure like both of them were close to 100%.
Well, I'm
And
sure with Pier in the deck, if you Ad Nauseum, then you can just like hit Pier and Tendrils, and it can get
oh,
bad quick.
that's funny. Yeah, I did not even think about that. So yeah, I suppose when you have both, you just have to get pure.
Yeah, I'm sure 87
Um,
is a lot better of a percentage. So you know.
and I see an Inferno Tutor and an LED, so this is going to be game over for sure, barring anything weird. But I mean, I think I even see the tendrils in hand. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah, just play some Writs, play some Mana Rocks, or whatever you want to call it, just Tendrils.
mean, thinking about it more, I'm sure pure is just like much higher win percentage. Like, I doubt that the ad nauseum draws more than half your deck on average.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I thought when I did my fake math.
all
Okay,
right,
so
game 3.
yeah, do you think anything changes? Like, I see that Tom boarded out a brainstorm, which, as we discussed earlier, is because he's more threat dense and doesn't have as much time to dirtle per se. But also boarding out Sylvan Scrying, I understand Scrying's like a little bit slower, but it gives you exactly the card you want, but maybe its speed is not appreciated.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any of the interaction pieces when you want them. Again,
Mm.
specifically Bog. Um, so it's probably too low impact. But both players submitted right away. I thought that maybe Anthony would have wanted his own Flusterstorms, both to combat the discard spells and the Flusterstorms out of Tom. You can do that sometimes if you have more mana than your opponent. But
The
opting not to and instead just being threat dense basically.
the Flusterstorm on the like Flusterstorm against discard I think can make sense on the play, but I don't think you're allowed to on the draw because then they just take your spells that matter and then the Flusterstorm.
Right, and then you're not doing anything.
Mhm. So we get to see the unique flair that Tom likes to put on this deck of Brainstorm just being able to really switch up this hand and leaving a Flusterstorm on turn 1 should things go badly, or Crop Rot. So lots of options here.
Yeah, the old brainstorm away my Mox Diamond and Crop Rot to shuffle is probably not the most conventional brainstorm of the format, but it does its job.
Chain of Vapor can also bounce the Mox Diamond should there be weakness and no second land drop here.
And honestly, probably not that bad of a play considering uh it's a colored mana and Tom was on the play, so like he's already down resources naturally. Opting not to do it, just rather save it as powerful Mirror Lake interaction. I think that's something that you would do less often against a black green build. But the fact that these Flusterstorms are looming means that the Chain of Vapor is less likely to be good going later. So maybe something worth considering against the bug variant specifically.
One thing that's always interesting to me from the ant side is how you want to play with having 2 tutors in your hand. So sometimes it's easy, like you play against, I don't know, your blue base stack, and you're like, yeah, I'll just get another discard spell. But
Hmm.
here it's like Ritual kind of helps, like you want a critical mass, but that's bad against Crop Rot. It's hard when you don't know what's in the opponent's hand yet. So
Yeah,
there,
it's a lot more difficult when you're fighting against both interaction on the stack and interaction in play. And another thing Anthony needs to be considerate of is the fact that he saw surgical in game 2, and if he just fires off one of these uh
tutors.
tutors as like a value tutor, then he could just get blown out.
Yeah, it's a good observation. Just understanding, like Tom has already showed you surgical, and it's probably better on the draw than it is on the play.
So I think this
Or
is a pretty big discard spell from Tom. Um, Not that he really needed the interaction, but I think the knowledge is fairly important to him because he has like an opportunity to go off if he wants. Maybe doesn't know exactly how he wants to use these Flusterstorms, if he should tax the mana, tax the payoff, etc. And I think that the information from that Thoughtseize is a pretty big deal.
I wonder if Anthony feels like it just has to be go time now.
Yeah, the LED a pretty big draw. Um,
And only one of these Flusterstorms castable due to the just 2 color slants in the stage.
Definitely don't see these things quickly, but I wonder if he can play through a single Flusterstorm in any way. Um, like tutor for LED is still +1 mana through. No, it's not. It's -1 mana through a
Yeah.
Flusterstorm, so that doesn't work. It's only plus mana with a threshold of Cabal Ritual, I think.
So one thing that he knows is that since Tom's not playing a list with, say, Elvish Spirit Guide or something like that, there is no way for 2020 to be made right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he might just want to play Infernal Tutor on LED and just say, I will go for it next turn and try to have the smallest Flusterstorm possible.
Right. Yeah. Although next turn there's going to be 2, but perhaps you can't anticipate that.
Or maybe like the mana gets taxed in some sort of way, but no, you're more likely right than not.
kind of
Might
like
just wait
this
for it.
because if he just casts Inferno Tutor, if he went LED Inferno Tutor, I wonder if Tom would just fire off a Flusterstorm.
Mhm.
Um,
And there's still just a surgical plan that you brought up earlier. If you just play LED pass, then you can try to set up like this tutor's on the stack, and then like I crack my LED, so then you can't surgical the one that's in the yard now. Copying Island is very heads up.
yeah,
Sorry, snow
and
covered island.
and Tom knows that the card that was drawn was LED. Oh, Brainstorm a huge draw there, I think. Oh, and he
Yeah,
finds a
being able
Ball
to get
Ritual
rid
as
of this
well.
extra Infernal Tutor and now has an abundance of mana. So I feel like we're getting close to liftoff.
Honestly, very disappointing that Anthony decided to play snow-covered basics in his deck. Typically, you want to do that to bluff that you're playing snow. But with open deck list, I just would have played the nicer basic. Come on, man.
And no Astrolabe. But maybe this is just the same list that he plays like normally with Astrolabe and Veil, so just like signed up the same deck. So I can't fault the person.
Probably, yeah. So Tom with the very quick passing of priority when that Dark Ritual went on the stack. Heads up.
Love it.
When you have spells like this, that your opponent could play around, but sometimes is difficult, you really need to think about what you want to counter before it goes on the stack.
Yeah, like
And
premeditating it. Only so many things can happen to you.
right, exactly. And I think Tom was pretty acutely aware of that and really thought about it beforehand, and it could have influenced Anthony's decision here because when that Dark Ritual went on a stack, Tom said okay right away, and then he kind of just cast the rest of his spells, and he's gonna get Flusterstormed here, and he's gonna be on no resources after that.
Yeah, so considering that we consider a deck Storm if it wins with the Storm mechanic, would you consider Tom's deck Storm? I mean,
Absolutely not.
but because of the Storm count, it's able to just win the game.
And we're talking a lot about this Flusterstorm, but also Tom could just win with Mirror Lake here as well. So not worried about a card like Empty the Warrens. What do you think of the decision to let him get the Passive Flames and then Flusterstorm? This allows him to save the second Flusterstorm, or else he would have had to cast both of them. But the downside is now there's a Passive Flames in the graveyard. So I suppose that's a good trade for you.
Yeah.
You're up a Flusterstorm, which at worst counters the Passive Flames that's in the graveyard.
Like nothing bad can happen to you next turn.
Well, the worst case is that Anthony draws, I suppose, like a discard spell first for the Flusterstorm, and then draws an LED for the Passive Flames. But
well, if you spend both Flusterstorms, the worst case scenario is that they draw LED, and then they can flashback Passive Flames and then play Rituals.
if you spend both on the tutor, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, the tutor got the Passive Flames, so there would be no.
Thank you.
Right,
Yes.
yeah. But I mean, if Anthony draws a discard spell this turn, he's just gonna die to Mirror Lake. So,
yeah,
this
I'm
was
pretty
probably
sure.
just thought through.
It felt like it was kind of close to a lock.
And there's the
Like,
LED actually.
Yeah, so he's feeling like he has a chance, but we know the truth.
Does this prevent Tom from going off his turn though?
There's no Urborg in play, so Sajiri Step coming to play tap does, but without any Passive Flames, I don't think there's a single card that can be drawn by the Ant player. So you know that your Crop Rot's good.
And there we go. Tom wins the match.
I'm telling you, Storm just winning 2 Fluster Storms.
He who casts more Storm cards wins the game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they both got to cast 2, right? Tom played 2 Storm cards, and then the Passive Flames deck got to play Passive Flames twice. So even trade,
yes,
really.
exactly the perfect trade.
So yeah, congrats to Tom Hep, really great guy and stuff. But we got a special guest coming on, and special as in you're already tuned onto his channel. So here he comes.
What the? Oh my god! All right, that was pretty cool. Honestly, like I was just watching this silently. Like I'm also like that. Okay, it's me by the way. It's Otterog, guys. Just in case you didn't know, the man behind the curtain. I'm out here, Jay, chilling. Dude, that top deck LED, like it's pretty crazy. Like Anthony had almost like like he set himself up, and then he's like, all right, I'm still in a position to win if I could like top decks just like mana, right? And he actually does it. But like Tom just like, I don't know, Heavyfoot is just like, no, you shall not pass. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, this is it. This is what life is like without Veil of Summer and Arcum's Astrolabe. But quite honestly, like, I don't mind it. I'm okay. You know, like, I mean, maybe after I get Thoughtseize a couple times, I'll just be like, you know, that'll be over it. But anyways, look, guys, I actually have to head out soon. But I do want to say, like, thank you so much. I want to say, first off, congrats to Tom. You absolutely crushed the tournament. Anthony, you also nailed it. In fact, everyone who played today, like, so glad that you guys could participate. Jonathan, Edgar, Jarvis as well. Thank you so much for doing commentary. Like, you guys are a blast. And then obviously like Ved behind the scenes helping navigate everything. I'll say this much, that the production was just like so smooth on my end that I definitely want to do this again. Hashtag looking for a sponsor. We'll up that prize support. You feel me? We'll make it a more prestigious, a bigger event. So you know the drill. Everybody in the chat.
Let's ban more cards next time.
What's up?
Let's ban more cards next time.
That's what I was thinking too. I have another hypothetical list in mind. I'll just shake up the format by a lot. Yeah. Oh, your list? What was it? What was your list? Edgar was like ban Gristle ban.
It was just every card I don't like playing against, so it's just Snow Mirrors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my god. I looked at that list and I was just like, yeah, I'm okay with that. I mess with it, but then I figure like everyone else would, you know, resident sleeper their way out of it. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing more of these kind of things, and even if it's just like regular Legacy, like just to get an idea of like I mean, like there's not enough Legacy out there, not enough Legacy coverage out there, so it's like really cool to even like host this kind of event. Plus, like the way you guys did it, you absolutely like. I'll be a broken record. You guys absolutely crushed it. That being said, like I'm gonna wrap up now. I'm gonna send you guys over to Abe Stein. I think he started streaming like an hour ago.
That's my boy.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys know the drill already. Hit that follow button if you haven't already. That way you'll know when I'm live next, which, spoiler alert, will be tomorrow for day 152, I think. And then obviously, if you like the content enough, subscribe. Shout outs to Edgar at EdgarMTG, Jonathan Sikanik at WatchWolf92, at JKU06, that's Jarvis, and then at VedCarhead, that's Ved as well. Give everyone, show some support. This was incredible, and I really do appreciate everybody hanging out here, being here. I will catch you guys next time. Yeah, that's it. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Oh, shit.